Then you know what happens? 6 years later, you find yourself singing Sorry with a fringe on top in front of Ira!
We're on. This is our second Shakespeare in the Park episode where we decided to record a podcast by sitting on a park bench.
Discussing movies based on Shakespeare because we're so smart.
And this is still in Front of Ira, a podcast where two friends who are historians and lovers of romantic comedies talk about romantic comedies. And
right,
I'm Sabrina.
I'm Torsten, still. I remain, as ever. Do you ever get annoyed when people like at the end like signing off say, and I have been? I'm like, no, you still are.
Unless they transition throughout the episode, but like generally probably
that feels very very fast for like 90 minutes.
I make myself unpopular when someone forgets my name and I say I'm still Sabrina, but you know, it's me.
All right, today we are discussing the 2023 romantic comedy movie, a romantic comedy that actually came out in cinemas called
Anyone But You.
Yeah.
And it is based on Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah, and refers to the casting.
Well, yeah. So it's directed by Will Gluck, who did things like Easy A, which was an adaptation of The Scarlet Letter.
Yeah. He also did like one of those teen cheerleader, like there were male cheerleaders, like a teen comedy thing, which is not amazing, but you can kind of see the sensibilities.
Yeah. He also co-wrote the script with Ilana Wolpert, who I think is queer, which is also why there's a subplot of a lesbian wedding, or like that's the main plot is the lesbian wedding, but like they're not the main couple.
And her claim to fame is that she was the assistant to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend Rachel Bloom.
Oh,
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So Anyone But You stars Glen Powell and Sydney Sweeney, who are sort of the current, like Sydney Sweeney comes off things like Euphoria mainly, done a bunch of other TV, so like also that new crop of teen TV, like Euphoria produced a bunch of people, Zendaya did stuff before, but they
she did Everything Sucks in 2018, which was short-lived, but really, really kind of very heartfelt Netflix teen
I saw
thing.
that too. Totally forgot she was on that. This is probably where I recognized her from without
I rewatched the whole thing because it's like very short. It's like 10 episodes, 20 minutes.
No, I really liked that.
And she has a really, really nice storyline on that with Peyton Kennedy.
Yeah.
Which will bring us to like, I think our main question to this movie is like, why is Sydney Sweeney in this and why is she not...
Why does this not work? Which, by the way, we will come to. The reviews also picked up on. So Glen Powell, however, has been surprising to me because he's also someone like... There's a tweet that went viral. It was like, where did he even come from? And I'm like, he's actually been working for a really long time because he's also been in a bunch of things. It's just not that everything was immediately like a superstardom thing. Like people actually have to really work hard in this industry quite often before they make it. Not everyone is Paul Mescal. But he was on Scream Queens, which I watched for a bit, like a Ryan Murphy.
Did not watch that.
It's a Ryan Murphy show, and he's like hilarious and campy on it. And then he was in Top Gun Maverick.
I think that's the thing that most people would know him from.
People now started that sort of put him in this position of getting, and apparently he's being mentored by Tom Cruise, which might not be a good thing, but that is sort of why he started to suddenly get a lot of like projects, and he will be in a ton more. I like literally saw a tweet yesterday that he's now been cast in like 3 new projects coming out, one of which is a Hulu series and 2 big movies.
And he's in Twisters
that just came out, So he's also self-deprecating, which is fun, or at least his social media team is. Like, he looks like a capybara, and they kind of lean into that. Or there was a funny thing where he was mixed up on the red carpet with Justin Hartley of This Is Us. Like, Justin Hartley arrived at the Emmys, and immediately one of the first people on the red carpet, and like a big outlet, like Hollywood Reporter or something like that, put out And Glen Powell, and then Glen Powell retweeted it with, "This is to announce that Justin Hartley and I will star in the most boring body swap movie."
It's like, wait, weren't you slightly different before?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the title of it. So this movie
anyway,
is...
I like him. He's grown on me. I think he's a great comedic actor, which you can actually see in this movie.
You can, although my problem is I find him more charming and funnier almost in like every interview he does than he is in this movie. I feel like this movie, something is in the air that is holding everyone back from doing their best. I don't know what it is.
So let's recap the plot. I mean, it's Much Ado. It's a version of Much Ado, which is also like an enemies to lovers thing. So they're named after the main couple. Like Much Ado is a main couple and a secondary couple. The secondary couple is the one getting married. The main couple is Benedict and Beatrice, which here Bea and Ben. And they hate each other. And in Much Ado, this is not actually ever fully explained to us why. But here they need to find some contrived reason why, and this is actually the thing that annoys me, because it doesn't quite chime with the premise of Much Ado. So they have a really good meet cute. So my issue, as I will come back to, is it's two movies. It's a Much Ado adaptation, and it's another rom-com that had another story, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that Lucy Hale should be in.
Writers clashing here.
Maybe.
Might be. But I don't know. But
what if it was just basically Much Ado the way that Wolpert wrote it, and then Will Gluck came in and like, we're going to need to like add something.
Yeah, or the studio. I mean, sometimes I'm also wondering if the studio told them to...
We need a meet cute.
Like... kind of tone down the Shakespearean wackiness that's still in there that I quite enjoy about it, and then it turned into a more generic thing along the way.
The meet cute is very much out of a I saw basically Sandra Bullock doing this.
It was like it probably is New. I forget if it's New York. It looks like it's just a big city, and they're in a coffee shop, so it's like a typical
probably New
thing.
York.
I also found it a very relatable meet cute, because what happens is she really needs to pee, and the coffee shop is only gonna...
Because she's like an intern at a law firm, she didn't dare ask where the bathroom is. Perfect. I love that.
And there are no, and I mean, even if in this situation there's no other bathroom than in the Starbucks, but then you need to ask for the key and you need to like purchase something. And there's a really long line, and she's just trying to get this key, and like the barista doesn't want to give her the key. And then he sort of sees that, and he's currently like buying his coffee, or is about to, and then he pretends he's her husband, and just like, oh, and can you get my wife a bathroom key, and so on and so forth. That's cute.
Espresso, only one shot because you left the light on until after midnight. I'm like, who are these people, by the way? Like, what amateurs? What fucking amateurs only stay up till midnight? Never mind.
Yeah, anyway, and it's grilled cheese night because she was gonna buy this bread to like, but
which
she had
comes back.
Yeah. And then so they end up like going for a walk and like having the classic meet cute, and end up spending the night. And then there's this other plot twist that nobody fucking understands, where she just decides to leave. I mean, she explains later that she was scared, but it's not spelled out. So I remember I watched this in the cinema, and it wasn't spelled out for me why she is walking
like, why are
out,
you going?
because
do you
as
have to
she
go to
is
work?
Walking out without saying goodbye to him, she's on the phone talking to a friend about how great he is. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Either you're scared of what just happened and then you walk away, but you can't tell your friend at the same time that this was great. Like, that was the weird moment. And then she sort of is like, oh, but like, why am I doing this? Walks back, in which case she overhears him talking to his friend, where she basically says, oh, she was nobody.
Because his friend basically accuses him of like having fallen for this girl immediately, because he showed her his mom's rent, which apparently also doesn't come back. It's just
weird. And so this is the reason they end up hating each other.
Right. And the thing that I don't like, the thing that is weird to me is, this is the thing that I believe actually easily happens between people all the time, right? Like you're kind of like not on the same wavelength, or maybe you are. You walk out, you realize later, oh, you haven't. It's a thing that I think in real life is I completely buy that. It doesn't work as motivation for the movie, like the way that it's contrived to be set up. Like something horrible would have had to happen, and
like, I get that you resent this guy and you think he's a fuckboy, but like something about this feels tacked on, or like
the whole fuckboy thing feels tacked on. Can we talk about this? There's a line of dialogue where she's like, "Oh, you still live at 28 fuckboy lane," which, by the way, is probably the worst line of dialogue in this movie. But the whole thing where at some point they kind of start fighting, and he says, "Oh, you call me a fuckboy and you think it's like an insult, but I own that shit." I'm like, no, you don't. You have not demonstrated one iota of fuckboyness in this whole movie.
And that makes it really hard to make me believe that they hate each other this way. I would totally get it if you had like this connection, or you think you had this connection, and then you end up thinking it was a meaningless one night stand to the other person. That shit hurts. And then you run into them again, and it's, you know, and you're like trying to protect yourself by being mean. That I get, but like the way it's constructed just doesn't fully work out for me, and this whole backstory, and that it's that bad to the point where they would ruin someone else's wedding over it.
The way that, because they meet again, like, what is it, like 6 months later or a year later in a club, and
because they have like a mutual friend, like the
koala guy.
Yeah. His friend...
Gata or something. He only has one name.
Yeah, his friend is... But he's also friends with one of the brides. And...
Or is his sister? It's somebody's sister.
No. Let me finish. I remember. No, he's friends with one of the brides and her brother. And Sydney Sweeney is the sister of the other bride.
Oh, right. The one that
she's
they go to
the older
the beach.
sister of the other bride. So they both end up at the same wedding, which is in Australia.
For reasons of tax breaks, we can only assume.
No, there's Australian family. The one guy's dad isn't.
Right, but like the way that this is done, like screams to me. Like the transitions are done, screams to me like, oh, this is where we managed to get tax breaks to shoot this, and this is where we're doing it.
Yeah, whatever. It's a destination wedding trope. Yeah. We're just going to buy it. So anyway, they obviously also end up on the same flight. He's in first class. She's in economy. There's some awkward like physical comedy going on for whatever reason.
The director puts his dad in as kind of basically the Rob Reiner's mom in When Harry Met Sally, like kind of when they talk at some point. And the director's dad is put in. So it's like, what? Yeah.
And then they're at this wedding, and it's like,
right. Can we talk about like the thing that made me root for Sydney Sweeney in this movie is the physical comedy when she tries to get the cookie from a sleeping Glen Powell. Like she's in coach. He offers her to basically smuggle the good food back for her. She says no. Then she goes to the bathroom. Their bathroom isn't free. She walks up to first class, and that one is also not free. And she sees Glen Powell having half eaten a cookie, and she's like, "Ooh, I could really use a cookie." She tries to climb over him and get the cookie, and we get like a whole mix-up thing. And like this and her scene in the bathroom in the beginning kind of made me, oh yeah, she does physical comedy well, and I like that, and I like her.
Yeah, it felt a bit unnecessary to do this whole thing. Also, that everyone would be so fast asleep in first class that they wouldn't know that this is happening. But
no,
I guess,
but like that's actually motivated because he has his like what his power song.
He doesn't know, but like there's other people there, inclling people who work.
But one woman wakes
play.
up and looks from like her like sleepy time your eyeglasses, and then like basically like just turns back and like weird people doing weird shit.
Yeah, but anyway, like so they arrive at this wedding. Everyone knows they hate each other. They're already afraid this is gonna ruin the wedding, so they now want to get them to like make up and actually fall in love because they knew they had this connection, which is obviously the plot for Much Ado, where it's like we didn't want to set them up, and we're going to do this by making them overhear conversation we've staged,
which is exactly the Shakespeare.
Yeah, and they're also really overdrawing whenever this has happened,
which
and that's
I thought
the
was
wackiness,
funny actually.
That I really liked. There's also the subplot of like Sydney Sweeney's character has just broken up with her long-term boyfriend, which was it was a fine relationship, but she didn't feel at home there anymore. And she quit law school, and she hasn't told anyone yet. Because she had been on the fence before. Like this is one of the first things we learned about her when she finally made that decision, and her helicopter parents don't know yet. And her parents are Dermot Mulroney and Rachel Griffith,
perfect,
who both love and who were in My Best Friend's Wedding together. and yeah, and obviously she's the older sister who's sort of the fuck up, who currently doesn't have a relationship, doesn't know where her career's going, and the younger sister is already getting married to her lesbian partner, and it's all great, and it's that classic conflict of like...
Yeah. And the boyfriend that she broke up with is Paxton Hall Yoshida from Never Have I Ever, who is also... Again, like these are the teen rom-com actors kind of graduating to their next thing, who I actually always thought was a much better fit for like the whole movie through. I'm like, for some reason, they seemed like a much better couple to me. But
yeah, I mean, I feel a bit sorry for him because he doesn't get to do all that much. Like the parents fly him in an effort to like get them back together. Weirdly contrived, and then he's there and doesn't get that much to do. And then also, because it's a wedding, his ex-girlfriend, who's an Australian, is also at the wedding with her, or she isn't, but like her partner is, and he's the prototypical Australian surfer dude.
So
and that actor is actually really, really funny, and he gets way more to do than like her ex and so on.
Yeah.
So forth.
Which is kind of like she's introduced as this really beautiful Australian, like, I don't know what she does, but she's clearly introduced as the one that got away for him. She's like, the first time we see her, she's like basically taking off her bathing suit or something. Oh no, she's actually naked already. And we're like, oh, okay, this is the one who for some reason is also Australian. So I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah. And then the surfer dude guy is funny.
Surfer dude guy is great. The scene where he and Glen Powell are under the shower is great physical comedy.
Also, like, once again, the homoerotic subtext, we like should have explored that more, especially in a movie that already has lesbians. But yeah, also Michelle Hurd is the mother of the other bride. I forgot who the actor's name is that plays the front, but like it's great. Like there's a lot of comedy.
Australian actor, also like really great physical comedy. He's one of the ones who does the sneaking around with the conversations. Yeah, the sneaking around,
overhearing conversations, and the brother of the other bride, and it's just like it's chaos.
I loved some of the kind of things that they set up, like the way that they talk about Australia, and like Dermot Mulroney talks about how the electrical plugs don't fit, and like otherwise like the country is very similar. Like they also have a complicated relationship with the past, which is really funny. The thing that's actually kind of cool in this Shakespearean, like how do we bring the Shakespeare in, is that Shakespeare quotes will randomly show up, like written on things, like on the wall,
like sometimes on the set, but it's clearly, I mean, it's CGI then, but like it sort of blends into
like
the
graffiti or something.
Film.
One is on a sign.
Yeah, sometimes it sort of blends in the back. I really like that. This is again like whenever they're actually leaning into the Shakespeare of it, that's when I liked it the most. And I don't know, like I understand that you need to properly give plot for why they hate each other, but like they could have, again, like it's weird.
It's not explained in Shakespeare. You could have basically
done the one night stand that's clearly was a connection, and then he sort of, but it was
the thing
the
is,
way
I
it doesn't hang together.
I think the thing is like it could have been the exact same plot, but we're told the plot instead of showing it. This is, I think, one of the few instances where show don't tell is actually worse, because the way you show it within the time that you have in order to do this, without it being like a television show where you have like 3 episodes to set up the arc, is so hurried and so fake that if you just had told people and you had like a little bit of like maybe a run-in before, and then like, I hate her because we're like, and then you would understand that. But the fact that this is why they hate each other, because of one small misunderstanding.
Yeah. And I mean, you could have done with that misunderstanding, but then they do it differently. But anyway, so yeah. And I mean, then we get lots of like wacky, like around wedding like, activities around the wedding that get like destroyed because of that. Like obviously the cake at some point has to be destroyed. Wedding trope. Also, the miniature train is going by.
The miniature train is going by again.
And yeah, and I mean, there's like Glen Powell gets to strip and do physical comedy because they're on a hike, and this is when they and also we have to say, like, at some point they're playing with more of the tropes of like, A, there's only one bed, B, there's fake dating, because then they decide to just pretend to be dating all of a sudden.
Which is, again, like, that's the story, right? Yeah.
And then they
try
go on
to
a
sell
hike,
it.
and they try to sell it, and obviously it's bad. And then he ends up with a big spider, because it's Australia, down his pants, and his reaction is to
take everything
strip
off
completely and throw it away in panic, which is actually relatable. This is how I would react to any encounter with spider, especially that size. But suddenly he's very naked, and she has to like check for more spiders in his ass.
And the dialogue is also great because he says like spiders hunt in pairs. That's why
it is true. And then he didn't really think this through, so now his clothes are like, and he ends up wearing like one of her
like she just has underwear on and he wears her shorts which are too small for him, which actually like is a scene that I like because it's just a quick background joke that isn't referenced anymore, and I think it works better that way.
And he gets to do physical comedy, and it's so contrived, but it's okay.
There's also a bunch of the Shakespeare, like they do that thing which they also do in 10 Things I Hate About You, where they actually have Shakespeare lines in there, and twice these lines are referenced by the other actors. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And then the person who said the Shakespeare line said, oh yeah, I just made it up. And you're like, okay, we see what you're doing. It's cute.
It's funny, and I mean, and then the big problem is like, okay, I would forgive more if the backstory not checking out well if the leads had more chemistry, and this is definitely where I struggle the most, because something doesn't quite gel. I don't know. Sydney Sweeney to me is just unlikable as a character here. Like
I really thought like this is the thing that I had the most issue with trying to grapple with why, because like the easy choice that a lot of reviews were, oh, she's not a good actress, Sydney Sweeney is overhyped, she's not good at this. But then I went back to watching, and I'm like a little bit skeptical of that already. I went back to watching Everything Sucks, and I loved her in that. It's not Meryl Streep Oscar performance, but I bought her. She was a real person. I really felt for her when she has the kiss with Peyton Kennedy. I was like totally sitting there like a teenager going like, oh my God, like I completely bought her.
Somehow only remember Peyton Kennedy and not who she was staring at, which also tells you something.
Does tell you something. I did not feel that at all in this movie.
Yeah. And I watched her. I also didn't that's the thing. I mean, I didn't watch Euphoria, but I watched White Lotus. And she's on season 2, and I mean she also plays this like bratty rich kid teenager, and that's the kind of thing she does well. And I think the problem is she's good at being the blasé teenager and being someone who's angry or spoiled or both, and here when she gets to do that, she does it in a way that actually makes her kind of a bitch.
The thing in this...
She's good at that kind of character, but that doesn't work if you're supposed to be the likable rom-com
The thing
lead.
that I've heard people express, I've read a bunch of like reviews and like people discussing this, is that Sydney Sweeney is really good when she gets to do kind of very little acting in terms of like expressing, or when she gets to go big and emotional. And all of this movie is in between that. None of this movie is huge and emotional in a way that really sells it, because like the whole contrivance is not huge and emotional. All of it is funny. And she just kind of mumbles her way through this movie.
Yeah, and she has 2 facial expressions.
And the thing that I really thought like, oh, she just the way which I think the mumbling is like I can't understand, like a bunch of not a whole vowel escapes her mouth this whole movie. And I'm like, is this just Sydney Sweeney? Is this the California girl? And again, rewatched Everything Sucks. Every word in this is understandable. So I wonder if this is a choice, because it's also referenced. They say like mumbly girl, like, oh, her thing is she mumbles. But is this a good
bad
choice?
Direction? Is it just
it feels like bad direction.
Is it like her and Will Gluck not gelling? Because I don't think he has any issues directing other people. I mean, he directed Emma Stone in Easy A.
I'm trying.
And I mean, obviously Glen Powell did fine, and like the supporting cast is doing
supporting
fine.
cast is
like,
Catherine Hahning the way through this. They're just killing it. Yeah. And like I don't know, but her like the way that she apparently has is just it's really it's grating. I don't know what it is. There's funny scenes in the whole koala scene the best friend guy approaching the koala in like this spiritual way while they're having their weird ass grabbing scene where they're trying to sell to everyone that they're dating by grabbing each other's asses, and the spider thing happens. There's a bunch of runners here that I have absolutely no understanding of why and how. Like the whole like the coffee is so good here, and the coffee is like keeping them up. And I don't know. Like, is this like a special thing? Like, do we? I don't know. Like, Sydney has that coffee. Like, this is like different than New York or Seattle or any other coffee. I don't get it. Although it does make for a pretty funny.
I mean, Australia is actually really known for like having specialty coffee. So
right.
Yeah.
Still, I'm like more than. I mean, maybe not more than Seattle.
They started the whole third wave coffee thing. Like, that is from Australia. There's third wave coffee shops all over the world. I know this for having dated an Australian person.
Coffee friend. Yeah.
So, but anyway.
Okay, I'll take that back, but I still don't quite get it because it's not referenced in the movie, and a lot of people also haven't dated Australians and don't know.
Spelled out well. I think that is another problem where I wonder if like there's cutscenes that were cut for whatever reason that would have explained things to us better.
I think so, and I wonder, and I wonder if part of this is kind of like the structural thing of like they inserted the meet cute when you didn't really need that, and like lost time for that, and so like a bunch of other things were cut. Maybe that's it, or maybe it just ran way over.
You might have needed the meet cute, but again, it's like you could have. You should have done it differently somehow. But anyway, yeah, so I think the chemistry between them is not that great, and it kind of makes it difficult for me to root for them getting together, I guess. I mean, there's some good scenes, like the scene where they fall in the water. So they go on this boat excursion, and like trying to sell that they're super in love and
doing the Titanic thing.
Titanic me. And then end up falling into the water, and obviously there's like
she ends up falling into the water. He which is the scene on the boat earlier, like it has been established, is not a good swimmer, and so he jumps after, even though he's not a good swimmer, to rescue her. Yeah,
and obviously it is in a popular space, so they won't gonna die. They're just gonna hold on.
And they hang
to,
on
like,
this buoy. Yeah.
But that is where it's like that is the scene where at least bought them more, because it was like that's when she kind of stops being a bitch, and it's like more real, and they talk about the fact that she dropped out of law school and she doesn't know what to do with her life, and finally talk about why when they first met this didn't work. And this is when she's like, well, it's for the first time I felt, I don't know how she puts it, like chemistry, or felt like something there, and then it freaked me out and I walked away, because this was also the moment where she was sort of on a break from a boyfriend already, and then apparently dragged out actually breaking up with him, because we get the sense it was a good relationship, but there wasn't really all that much there.
I think it was kind of like another trope, like when she says we never fought, like I think that's kind of like that thing, like, and which also makes probably like a lot of people watching romantic comedies go like, oh, I need to fight with my partner more. I'm like, maybe also that'll lead to a breakup. It feels like
the Greg Kinnear relationship.
Yeah, exactly that.
And I get that, because I ended like we never fought until we like fought about nonsense, but we started to fight about nonsense because I wasn't happy with it anymore and I wanted more from things. So I do actually get that, especially because she's younger than Glen Powell. So she's like late 20s.
Which is,
and
again,
like
another of those runners that doesn't quite work, where he ages himself up 1 year closer to his actual age every time that age is mentioned.
Yeah.
Like he says at some point he's in his like late 28s or something like that. And so there is supposedly something with the age gap that he's like mid-30s and she's like mid-20s, but it's also not super well, because like if it was clearer from the whole thing what he actually does, maybe I would buy that more. Like, because he also seems to not really quite know what to do with his life within his like weird finance job where he looks at computers and makes money that way.
I think he's kind of underdeveloped compared to her, and that is also a strange balance. If we get more of a sense of like they're both currently in a point in their lives where they don't really know what they want.
Like what you need is like him to basically be presented as a character who has more things figured out than her, and like that this is kind of weird between them, and she's like, and and then you kind of like need to take it back and go like, oh, he doesn't actually, he just looked like he had it figured out, but he didn't look like he had it figured out. It's because they lean into this fuckboy thing, which I don't think really suits the character.
No, it suits it, and I don't buy it. Like, again, it's Glen Powell. Like,
Glen Powell is not a fuckboy.
Like, so the first time I remember actively seeing Glen Powell was actually in Hidden Figures, where he plays John Glenn, the astronaut. Yeah. And I'm like, this guy is gonna get big because he has resting Air Force face. And then he went into Top Gun Maverick, and I was like, yes, exactly. That's what I meant. This is exactly the film I expected him to be in, and then make it big, and then get to do more things. And here we are.
Yeah.
And I mean, when he smiles, it still looks like a capybara. But other than that, he's like, he has resting military face.
Yeah. He could be cast in anything set in the 60s. Let's put it that way.
And the 30s and 40s. Like, give him World War II movies.
Give him like a World War II haircut.
But he's also, again, like in Scream Queens, he's super, super campy.
But this is the thing. Like, this is, again, just the way that Sydney Sweeney doesn't get to do the two things she's good at. He also doesn't get to play on this. They set him, this guy who is, kind of, he plays John Glenn, he plays in Top Gun. He feels like much more of a together authority figure kind of guy, like a guy who knows what he's doing, or at least projects that air. And at no point do we get that from him here.
Yeah, and also, again, the other thing he can do well is actually be really campy, and we get glimpses of that, but then he's the one who has to dial it back compared to all the supporting actors who get to do it.
Yeah.
The one time he gets to do it is with the spider, and then I'm like,
but also that scene isn't helped by the fact that literally nobody's watching them. I think it's for the audience, it's played for the audience, but also you kind of need a context why this is embarrassing. Like, I don't know, it didn't quite,
because one of the reasons why it also works for him is because he looks like he's the competent military man, and then make him afraid of the spider is a classic trope of like the give him the like nuance.
Make him the competent military man for his character, and then he's afraid of the spider
and doesn't actually know what the fuck to do, and has like absent parents or whatever. Like work with the tropes that work for a reason, and like it's just too vague. Like the backstory for both of them is too vague. I buy her as like, I stopped going to law school. That is great. Like that works. Like there's some quick references of like, this is the kind of person who was always trying to do the right thing, and now she's close to 30 and is like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? That is relatable to almost everyone.
Definitely everyone who watches a romantic comedy.
Yeah. That is immediately relatable to like millennials, and this is who this movie is meant. Like, and Gen Z is watching it too, but like Gen Z and millennials, that works. Just buy that, but like make something about him here. Like there's some stuff set up that's never explained. So again,
the mother, the whole thing with the mother, like in the beginning, the wrench where he's like, oh, this wrench, my mother was like,
she died probably, something. Do we find out?
No. Then the wrench never comes back, which of course not. It's a giant wrench. You don't bring that in the suitcase to Australia.
Yeah, but like if the backstory is there, then like give that
or like
to us.
Reference that and like
why give him the ex-girlfriend? Make it about the mother. I don't think I needed his ex-girlfriend to be there, because it doesn't, like, of course he's trying to figure out if there's a spark there, and then predictably there's not, and it's like, okay, the one that got away. But like,
she's there for the one scene where Sydney Sweeney sees them kiss.
It's like Chekhov's gun that never goes off.
It's Chekhov's wrench.
Like Chekhov's wrench. Like make him emotionally unavailable because his mother died. Mm-hmm. That is a fucking trope, but it works for a reason.
Yeah, again, like I think what I came away from this movie with is the really great romantic comedies to me work because they end up being more than the sum of their parts. Yeah. And this has such great parts, and it is somehow less than the sum of their parts.
And I remember, like when they have sort of the wacky credits where everyone is singing and written by Natasha Bedingfield, which is a song which keeps coming up, and they also sing in the water to calm him down
song,
when they had to like get him out of the water in the helicopter. And
I wonder if it was written around that, or if they like tried to figure out a song later.
And I really like those credits because it's that weird fourth wall breaking where we're back to all of these scenes, and suddenly everyone is singing that instead, but they're singing it in character. And that has that Shakespearean quality to it of like, we're not taking ourselves too seriously with this. There's some like it's not quite magical realism, but there's something like heightened about it that like works. And that's the kind of movie I would have liked to see more.
The thing that struck me is the scene with the spider, with him being naked, and then the way that it's presented in the credit sequence. They have way more chemistry than the rest of the movie for some reason.
And what really is so funny that is their whole promotional campaign, and I'm sure this was set up intentionally.
Oh, I think Sweeney has said that they did that intentionally.
Make us believe they had an affair while filming this. Yeah. And I don't believe them. I never fucking believed them for 1 second. I don't think they don't like each other, but like also her fiance produced the movie. Yeah. Which never has stopped anyone, obviously. But
I also wonder if this is part of the reason that it doesn't work. It's like your fiance is the producer. She's, I think, like a co-producer. And like, it feels like maybe like the power thing was like, oh, she's the star. She gets to do whatever she wants. And nobody told her, like, no, you need to actually sell this in like I don't know. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, maybe it's having producer credit, being able to push against what the director is saying as well. Who knows? Yeah. But like, yeah, the promotional, like their interviews was basically built on the fact that people on social media were dumb enough to believe, and I want to say Gen Z, Tumblr girlies, I'm sorry guys, that they actually
something
had a
weird
relationship.
Oh, there's interview. Oh, it's a phone.
Yeah. And then but it. Yeah, I just didn't believe that. And also, but they also didn't like, I mean, the movie actually ended up doing really, really well. So it is significant that it like was the big actual cinematic rom-com release of last year that might hopefully mean more like cinematic, like theatrical rom-coms are getting greenlit again. But it was here the whole time.
It's now doing things. I don't know why.
And so yeah, it was the big theatrical rom-com release. It did really well, but when they first started to market this, it was really weird because they only showed this like one scene of them like being on the boat together and bickering, and like nobody knew what the fuck this movie was supposed to be. It must have been one of the worst marketing campaigns for anything
completely
ever.
Decontextualized. It's just basically pretty people being mad at each other for reasons we don't understand.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this movie? And had you just told me it's Will Gluck doing Much Ado About Nothing, I would have been sold. I'm like, I'm probably going to see this.
It's
like,
completely
and I mean, again,
miss.
it ended up doing well. I think there was a lot of like social media, word of mouth stuff going on with it, and then the promotional campaign at least worked on some people in terms of the interviews of them and so on and so forth. But the first trailer release, it was such a like
baffling, I think, is the word. Yeah. Completely baffling.
Yeah. Anyway,
there is what are some
to say? Yeah, I mean, reviews were sort of mixed. It has like a typical 6.1 IMDb, I think. Reviews were mixed. Because they're like, oh, well, they're working with tropes, but they're also not working with them all too well. So it's a bit too generic. And anyone but you is the potato salad with raisins of rom-coms.
Interesting. Like you like it or you don't?
No, you don't.
I don't think
that was a bad rating. Sweeney's efforts at screwball repartee has strained in this update of William Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing as torturous plot contrivances only the bard could get away with, which is basically
which is why you lean into it
in Singapore. But yeah.
Which is why you lean into it. I think that's the thing, and you didn't do it enough.
Yeah.
The reviews I've read are kind of like split into the script isn't good and that's why it's not working, or it's kind of working, but Sydney Sweeney isn't good. Yeah. Those are kind of the things. And I think it's not either of these. I think with different casting, I think this would have been a much better movie. Change nothing else. So the chemistry is so important, and it doesn't quite gel. And it doesn't quite gel in a way where you can't overlook it because the rest of it is so good. So I think that makes a lot of it. And the thing is that it's kind of like a Sydney Sweeney star vehicle, and Sydney Sweeney
is not a star.
Is not. I mean,
sorry.
No, I think she's perfectly fine as an actress. I will say, like, I understand, like, there are things about it where I'm like, okay, this isn't great, but she's she is better than she comes across here, and she's not.
Yeah,
she's
she
not
might
Sandra
just
Bullock.
not
She's
be
not a
rom-com
rom-com
lead
star.
Actress. Like, do more
Or
TV
maybe she-
drama where you play Euphoria, White Lotus. I mean, it's not my favorite performance on White Lotus, but she fits in there. She's supposed to be unlikable.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Maybe it's a thing that we're trying to make people who should be character actors not character actors because they look good.
That's the whole thing. I mean, I still feel for her that there was this weird right-wing thing where people were saying her tits are defeating Vogue, which is really funny to me. I also have big tits. I don't know if they're going to defeat Vogue anytime. But yeah, that's the thing. Also, speaking, I sorry need to bring this up, but people on social media have pointed this out, and I was in physical pain watching her in any of the scenes where she's wearing a bikini, because her bikini is like at least 2 sizes too small, and I don't know how this is possible for a costume designer to put it in such ill-fitting clothing, because if you look really close, the back of it is riding up and it's barely like under her. Like, if you know how a bra is supposed to fit, she's wearing it 2 sizes too small, and I've definitely done that when I was a teenager and couldn't find a proper fitting bra. But this was a legit social media discussion where everyone who has breasts was aching in solidarity, and I'm like, why are you letting this put you? Did you choose this yourself? So it's like more squeezed in?
I have not heard this. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Maybe like if the costume designer did it on purpose.
I can show it to you in terms of
there is something which I think also is incompatible between like the rom-com lead that she plays and the fact that she is Sydney Sweeney and she has to show her breasts. Like, there's kind of a thing where that makes sense if that's the character, right?
Yeah.
If that's like a part of like, oh, I'm like, this is I'm presenting, but she's kind of playing like a classic, like more like buttoned up Sandra Bullock type rom-com lead, and that it kind of doesn't work. So I'm also wondering if there were like fights between like
and
how.
I mean, again, if she has producer credit, she can probably choose.
Yeah, she's like, this is how I want to look. I look hot in this. I'm like, yes, you do ? But also, is this for the character?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, does this make sense?
I don't know. It's a whole thing. And I mean, obviously, Glen Powell is also like, get him some water. I mean, this is the kind of like dehydrated.
He looks incredibly dehydrated. Yeah. I mean, Dermot Mulroney makes a reference to him being like chiseled in stone. I'm like, probably the man is thirsty.
So I mean, it's also obviously still Hollywood beauty standards that might be played up even more in a big cinematic release, but at some point, I think we're at a point with this where it's kind of grating, and it's definitely interesting that there's a right
and where people kind of know, right?
Yeah,
where people kind of know.
We're no longer having the same like body image bullshit.
And we're not pretending that this is
natural,
natural, right? We're not pretending that when we know when one of those Marvel actors like shows up like half a year later with like tons of muscles and just says, "Oh, I just pick stuff up and I put it down." Also, like, is that all you did?
Also within the genre, like I think it hinges so much on people being sort of the likable everyday. Yeah. Even though they're always going to be beautiful. Meg Ryan and Julia Roberts, incredibly beautiful women, but the way they're usually styled in these movies still makes me think these could be normal people. Yeah. Like, I always marvel at, like, I mean, in Notting Hill, Julia Roberts is obviously also an actress, but like in scenes where she's her private self, she also still looks like Julia Roberts does without like much makeup, or she still looks like a person. Or
there's not enough Chris Pine caught shopping at the bodega in this kind of like I don't know. So I think we're both on the same page that this movie is somehow less than it could be. I like the fact that we're doing big cinema rom-coms. I don't mind either of these actors, but somehow for me this doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't fully hang together.
I hope that if they ever do something together again, that they fix whatever ailed this.
And they have been talking about making a sequel. I'm like, you don't make sequels to rom-coms. What you do is put the same actors in a different movie together again.
I mean, if you do, it becomes like the whole Bridget Jones thing, and like I'm not sure I needed all of the the updates on the storyline because I liked the end of the first movie.
Yeah, to be fair, Bridget Jones is based on books, and
It's
there are
based
more
on
books.
it, yeah, it's true.
So I've enjoyed them because I know the book stories also now went back in time. If there's a new one coming out,
Put them
that
in
I'm
another
actually
Shakespeare
looking forward to.
adaptation.
When the new Bridget
unrelated.
Jones comes out, by the way, we need to like just maybe review all of the Bridget Joneses in. Like,
How many
an
are there? Like
episode.
4 or 5 now?
Yeah. There's
I only
there's
saw the
3 and
first one in
4th is coming
cinemas.
out.
Yeah.
No, the other ones are fun.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
But
put a
yeah.
pin in that. But yeah, anyone but you, we have fake taglines coming up.
Yeah, and the real tagline, which is also weird. They only look like the perfect couple. This isn't what it looks like. I'm like, yeah, this isn't what it looks like. It's not the kind of rom-com you expect it to be because it also is a much ado adaptation and you couldn't decide between the two. Yeah, what's your fake tagline?
Mumbly girl versus fuckboy.
But are they either?
No.
No, my favorite, like, I'm just gonna pick a line from the movie. It's a radio play, motherfucker. It's just when they do the like fake conversation to overhear, and he's like acting something out.
I
It's
felt
like they
that
don't
so much.
see
I
you.
love radio plays. This is so good. It's so
radio
good.
play,
That was a good line. Very good line. Also,
the
is that
lesbians are so
Tasmania?
cute.
It is Tasmania, right?
What?
Is that Tasmania?
Where they are?
Is it? That's Tasmania.
Okay.
Can you see Tasmania? This movie relied a lot on unwritten, but it also was very much written, and perhaps
my other fake tagline is what Gluck really likes Natasha Bedingfield because in Easy A it was Pocket Full of Sunshine that kept coming back, and here it's unwritten. So I think Will Gluck is single-handedly responsible for like putting Natasha Bedingfield on the map outside of Australia. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's it. And we're signing off from the park.
All right.
This was our summer Shakespeare in the Park mini part of the season, or mini season that is part of the season.
Yeah, and I think it's the end of the season, and we're coming back in the fall with Meg Ryan Fall
Meg
and
Ryan
finally
Fall.
doing You've Got Mail.
We're doing You've Got Mail. We're probably gonna buy pencils, like a bouquet of pencils.
Yeah, pencils.